To our next session, Andy Braycliffe. Andy and I have just been talking about his complicated history of engagement and lengthy history of engagement with these issues. So I won't try and repeat it. I'll let Andy do all of the talking. Go ahead, Andy.
Thanks very much, John. Morning, everybody, and welcome to sunny Manchester, which is a change. So my name's Andy Braycliffe. I've been in the online harms, online safety landscape for 15 years, ex-law enforcement, ex-social media, very much embedded in the trust and safety landscape as well. And I'd like to thank the organisers for allowing me to speak today. So I thought I'll try in 20 minutes to discuss how complex the landscape is. So, firstly, what are we talking about? Obviously, we're here, Age Assurance Summit. So a lot of the focus on that is about children, but obviously we're also looking at, who's over 18. We've obviously got the new laws coming out in the UK, or have come out in the UK, about you have to be over 18 to log into adult pornography now. So it's not just children, it's also adults. The myriad of platforms, not just social media. Obviously all the laws and the acts and all the regulations go with it. So, as I say, just how complex is it? Are we just looking at it nationally? Here we are in the UK. The UK itself is very, very complex, which I'll touch on in a minute. And then going from the UK, are we looking at Europe, which is, again, quite complex, especially if you look at, say, Ireland, where you've got Northern Ireland, which is UK, Republic of Ireland, which is EU, but no actual border. So we could get in a situation where, say, the EU introduce an age ban, let's say on social media is 15, which they're talking about. The UK might decide not to do an age ban, but we have an open border. So literally some child can step like this and be legal in one country and illegal in another country in theory. The other thing is terminology. Are we talking about the online? Are we talking about cyber, digital, e-safety, internet? Is there a difference? What's the difference? Do they all cross over? We have the Online Safety Act here in the UK, for instance. But when you actually look at what's online, we even have our heating in our house, which is online. We have white appliances, which are online. Those things aren't covered in the Online Safety Act. So do we need to discuss exactly what we're talking about? And I think we really need to understand some of the basics. And that's what we're going to sort of touch on today a little bit. So who's actually involved when we're looking at the online landscape? So this is roughly it. And we're going to try and focus on the UK. That's because of where we are. So all these people, predominantly in 1 and 3, have some part to play in online safety and harms. And in topic 2, obviously, online harms, according to the UK, there's 130 online harms. Okay, but I couldn't list them all here. Now, where it gets even more complicated is that all of these have a lot of sub-elements, all of these have a lot of sub-elements, and all of topic 3 have a lot of sub-elements. And all those sub-elements cross over into each other. Okay, so if I was to do a line from all of these where they all cross over, it would just be one big black mess of lines. You wouldn't actually see anything. So to give you an example, education. Are we educating children? What about colleges? What about in universities? What about educating parents? What about educating adults? So all that fits under education. Tech development. How many tech development companies are there in the UK? Academia, for instance. There are 20 universities in the UK all doing something around online harms and online safety, but we don't actually know what they're doing. And that's just universities. So look below universities, how many professors are doing something? How many PhD students are doing something? We don't know what that research is. Government. 10 government departments in the UK are involved in online safety and online harms in some way, shape or form. That's just the departments. How many teams within those government departments are doing something? We don't actually know. There are about 40 MPs involved, and we have these things called APPGs, all party parliamentary groups. currently we've identified 4. Okay, that's all we know. Okay, that are doing something. I asked the team at the APPG how many other groups are involved in online safety. They said we haven't got a clue. So that's a good start. Law enforcement, we've got 42 police forces and 1 national agency. Within those, they all have a myriad of teams as well. Here we are, age verification. Look how many people are here just on that. NGOs, no clue, to be honest. And somewhere, maybe not. We did have charities. How many charities in the UK are involved in youth safety, online safety, looking at all of that? We don't know, haven't got a clue. I asked the Charity Commission, who I thought would actually know. Even they turned around and said, no, actually, we don't even know. Okay. And within all of that as well, how many independent educators, trainers, experts, professionals are involved in this space? We have no idea. And do they even actually have the right knowledge, with all due respect? I hear of some people who go into schools who literally the other week just decided they were going to give a talk on online safety. No background or anything like that. And when I've spoken to a couple of them and I've said, oh, where do you get your information from? And they go, oh, what parents are telling me or what I've read in the news. That might not be the best idea, personally. As I say, so all of these fit into topic 2. So are we educating, who we're educating on what? Talking about education, I heard that there's one particular area in the UK, they allocate 10 hours a year to educate young people on online safety. That's not much. I mean, there's 130 online harms, so they can't be covering all of that. Content moderation over here taps into platforms. All of these here have a lot of sub-elements as well. Financial institutions, banks, we've got the cryptocurrencies now as well. Sport landscape. I was actually here in Manchester the other week, liaising with the football clubs about online abuse in football. Even that itself is a huge, huge topic, and that falls under various things here: hate and abuse, VOG, harmful but legal, misinformation, deepfakes even. And that was just football. We haven't even touched on the wider sport landscape yet, and even that's huge. The music industry, that falls under some of these as well, but we never see them really at any of the meetings and discussions. Shopping, retail, gaming. Gaming's huge in itself. So the problem here is all of these connect. So what we need to do is figure out who's doing what, where, how, so we can all learn and keep up to date with everything that's going on. So as I say, each subject has multiple sub-elements. They all cross over. It changes daily. I think we all know that, where we're looking at the regulations, we're looking at the laws, how do we keep on top of all that? Are we just receiving emails? Are we just chatting to our colleagues? Are we checking LinkedIn or X or whatever? How do we keep updated? As I say, is it nationally, regionally, globally? It constantly changes in the UK, let alone in the EU, let alone globally. I mean, look at the States. That's changing from state to state every single day virtually. And we are an interconnected world. So just because it changes in one country doesn't mean it's not going to affect us. Obviously, differing laws, regulations, cultures as well. That plays a significant part in it. And obviously, we have the fun around, safety versus privacy versus regulation, and obviously freedom of speech, which causes an awful lot of conversation. Do we even know what's missing? We're having all these talks, we're having all this research, which is great, but are we doing the research on the gaps which are missing? What have we not achieved yet? Because when we look at the online world, the one thing we do agree with is that everything is getting worse. So we've been looking at this for 20 years and everything's worse. Nothing's stabilized. Nothing's actually technically got better per se. So something can't be working right. And then what else do we have to take into account? Well, human behavior. I think that's a key one, because at the end of the day, when we're looking at the online world, whether it's people buying things, let's say buying knives online where they need to be age checked, we also know that people try to avoid the age checks. So that's just human behavior. They try to outsmart the system, making abusive comments. At the end of the day, that's human behavior. Societal attitudes. Do we need to improve people's knowledge as well? I've spoken to a few people here, and one of the things we agree with is that maybe the public perception of a lot of this is a bit misunderstood. So do we have to start educating the public a little bit better about all that? I've put acceptance there. Maybe we have to accept that we all have different views as well. Financial gain. Obviously, some people have talked to me here about how hard it is to get funding to do things. Do we always have to have that? Yes, we all like money, let's be fair. But why is it so hard to try to go out to find funding for certain things? I mean, in fact, some of the schools, when you go and give the talks in schools, some of these schools can't afford, a lot of money. But yet we see people charging, almost £2,000 to go into a school. Some schools can't afford that, So why do we always have to have this financial incentive, especially when we're talking about protecting children? Then there's more than enough companies out here in the world that I think should start investing in all of this. To give you an example, I was saying about the fashion companies. Why would they want to be involved in all of this? Well, a lot of young people go online to buy their clothing, and then they're taking the selfies. How good am I looking in my latest clothes and all of that? So maybe from a moral and ethical perspective, fashion companies should be getting involved to say, actually, yeah, we want to promote safety and things like that for the future generation. So maybe they should start investing in all of this, just as an example. So what can we all do together? I mean, for anybody who's been to an event, a webinar, a conference, you will have probably all heard the word collaborate continuously. And yes, it does happen. And when it happens, it's great. But we still have a bit of a problem with collaboration. So personally, I would say coordinate. We need to learn how to coordinate. We need to find out who's doing what, where, and how. The amount of research that's going on, is phenomenal. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute, just because someone's doing one bit of research, that person over there can't do something else. That's fine. There's more than enough chaos in the landscape to do that, but at least let us know who's doing what. There might be crossovers. They might be able to collaborate, communicate with each other. We're here, talk. This is such a fantastic summit, and I'm really pleased it's not in London. But coming together, having that network, just chatting over a coffee, learning and sharing from one another, that is so vitally important. You never know what knowledge you're going to bring to that next person. It's amazing just having those abilities to talk and cooperate. We don't have to be against each other. We're all in it for the same reason at the end of the day. We're all looking to protect, people online, not just children, but adults as well. Not just now, but the future generations as well. So if we as adults can't cooperate, we've got no hope to be able to protect anything going forward as well. So this is what we really need to do. How do we all come together? How can we fix this coordinated approach? How does it all work, as I say? What's important? What is actually working? We're always looking at the negative. We're always criticizing. There's almost a bit of a blame game going on. But actually, there's an awful lot of stuff that is working and is right. So, if that's the case, let's applaud it. Let's say that's right, that is working. I put admit and accept. Maybe some places, organizations, companies should also admit when they've got things wrong and actually just put their hands up and just go, look, we've got it wrong. we've made a mistake, but we're going to try and fix it, rather than constant on the defense. I think they would get a little bit more respect to say, look, we've tried it, it didn't work, or we have made mistakes in the past. I'm sure, I'm not saying they would get a round of applause from it, but they might just get a bit more respect from it. Trial and error. Let's just try things. Let's have a look at Australia, for instance. They did the social media delay. Depending on what you're reading, it's either worked or it hasn't. But rather than looking at it that we tried it, or they tried it, did it work? Great. If it didn't work, just go, it didn't work. We tried it, right, time for a different approach. And, all the other countries around the world that are looking at the social media delays, maybe they should be thinking, well, we'll try it. I don't know if some of you know that actually in the UK, there is actually a trial being undertaken. And if I'm right, unless someone wants to tell me I'm wrong here, it's about 300 kids. And they're looking at it 3 distinct areas. One group of kids will not have access to any, certainly social media, for like about a week, full stop. You're just not having it. Another group of kids will have restricted access, and the other group of kids will have sort of a certain amount of access, but quite controlled. And they're trialing it to see how it's going to work. Now, I don't think 300 kids is really a good enough sample. They could just go to a single school and get about 1,000, but they're trialing it. So, let's accept that. So it'll be interesting to see the results on that one. Education for all. We do focus a lot on just educating children, but we also need to educate parents, and we also need to educate adults. When we look at a lot of stuff that's going on online, it is predominantly adults causing a lot of these issues. Whether they're making abusive comments online, whether it's intimate image abuse, or whether it's even CSAM sharing. It's amazing how many adults don't actually realize the law. So we need to educate that. I've mentioned funding. Drop the silos. Again, you might have heard, a little bit how we all work in silos. Why can't we just all help each other a little bit? Age assurance. Yeah, we're all here. This is great. We're all chatting. We're all learning from one another. So that's brilliant. Obviously we've got the age bands potentially still being discussed or coming out in other countries. How important that is. And we're talking about it. And at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility. All of us here. We might be parents. We might be educators. We might be school teachers. We are here at an Age Assurance Summit, so we have a responsibility as that. So we all have a part to play. So let's, again, help each other, talk to each other. As I say, find out who's doing what, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, collaborate. It's not all about who are the biggest companies. There are some fantastic individuals who have created some amazing resources and tools, and they find it really hard to get noticed. So maybe we should give these smaller groups, individuals, a chance to show what they've got. There's a whole myriad of capabilities out there, but they just don't get the chance to say, hey, look at us. You never know. That might be the one thing that fixes your problems if you have any problems. Listen and learn, as I say. I'm really conscious of time. That's why I'm flying. But at the end of the day, we all have the same focus. Let's try and be together rather than against each other. And basically, in summary, as I say, I've talked a lot about here, this just being the UK. When we looked at that list, and I mentioned government departments in education and things like that, that's just UK. Now, look at that from an EU perspective. Each country will have that same list. How many government departments in France, for instance, or Germany, or Austria or Switzerland, wherever. It's the same principle. How many, say, independent platforms are there in these countries? So all of this now goes into Europe. And then let's look at it from a global perspective. That even gets even more complicated. So if we're going to keep on top of it, we need to understand what's going on. And basically we have a choice. We have a choice whether we want to do this, or we have a choice whether we don't want to do it. We have a choice whether we want to collaborate or communicate, or we choose not to. But, you know, it's as simple as that, basically. So personally, I think it's time for us to choose that we do want to move forward and do want to collaborate, communicate, coordinate, and basically protect the future, not just the current. So that's it. I think I'm on time. Bang on. So thank you very much, but I will happy to take questions now, or you can catch me afterwards. Thank you.
So, you did say it was a complex picture.
Yeah, in 20 minutes.
Overwhelmingly complicated, yeah. Did you see the presentation yesterday from the lady from Persona? I don't know if she's still here.
I might have been in another one, actually.
She's mapped out stuff that's happening on a global basis. It's completely mind-blowing. I shall be a regular visitor to that site. So, any questions or comments? There's nothing coming
there's one
on.
at the front. Yeah.
Okay, at the back.
Oh, back and front.
And here. Oh, I can't see somebody. Yeah.
Hi, just a comment. My name is Hera, and I founded and run an organization, a nonprofit that works on online gender-based violence. You said that we don't know how many organizations are working. I know that was just like a comment in general, but I'm just going to say there's a lot of us working on this. It's a lot more than it was about 13 years ago when I started. And there are concerted efforts in terms of that's our own sector of nonprofits working on this, doing more work with smaller companies, larger companies. One of the reasons I'm here is because I wanted to learn more about the age insurance industry. And I know you talked about we need to coordinate more. I totally agree. I think what I'm really curious about is what that looks like from as a nonprofit. I know what that looks like for us. You know, we're sharing our research with tech companies, with policymakers. We also want to come up with like ideas of how this could work, map out the different challenges. You talked about culture. We're just preparing to publish a study that's specifically looking at what like deepfakes and online abuse looks like in different cultured communities. So to bring nuance. So I think there's some, like you said, really good work happening in different places, but there's not that much of coordination, but also information sharing.
Yeah.
You know, so like we're working together. So that's so it's not a question; it's more of a comment that I think I agree with what you said. For me specifically, that's one way I think that the conversation is a bit more siloed. But I'm glad that we have spaces like this. And actually, I don't know if any organizers here. I think it would be good if we had more time for actually engagement, because I think a lot of the presentations don't leave much space to talk. It's just more like, do you have a question? But yeah, and I've seen you online actually for I think at least 5 or 6 years. It's good to see you in person.
Lovely to meet you. No, firstly, I thank you for all the work you do, and I think that's a key observation. Your organisation is doing some fantastic work. Who knows that your organisation and what they're doing, and how can we improve sharing what you're doing? And that's what it's all about. As you say, some fantastic organisations. But do people even know they exist? And if you're looking at AI and deepfakes, a huge conversation. So let's try and get more people aware of what you're doing. So thank you anyway.
There was somebody at the back, was there? No, it goes back to the asymmetry of resources between one side and the other, and the NGO world and the industry. The idea of we're never going to be on the level playing field. We're never going to be able to compete. But what we have that they don't have is public opinion on our side. And that's why that reversal in the European Union is so frustrating and annoying. How, with levels of support of 80% for the kind of measures that were contained in that draft regulation, how did we manage to end up with 312 MEPs voting not to keep the regulation going? How did we manage to end up with 92 MEPs abstaining, meaning that effectively legal permission for use of these vital tools evaporated? It's unbelievable, really. So did you have a question? Oh, no, okay. I thought there was somebody at the front who had a question. It seems like you're done. That's good. Thanks a lot, Andy.
Cheers,
That's
John.
great.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.